We're live.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It's House Energy and Digital Infrastructure. It is Thursday, February 24th, and we are here with folks from the Land Use Review Board to talk about two different bills. One is our committee bill 260781, and the other is H727, our data center bill. And we'll go around the room and introduce ourselves and then ask everybody who's here to say hello, and then we'll turn it over to folks for the record. So I'm Representative Kathleen James from Manchester.
Scott Campbell, in St. Johnsbury.
Richard Bailey, Lamoille 2.
Chris Morrow, Wyndham, Missouri.
Michael Southwood, Caledonia 2.
Christopher Howland, Roslyn 4. Graham Klutner, Chittenden 13, Burlington.
Laura Sibilia, Wyndham 2.
And Rep. Torrey.
Representative Torrey, Washington 2.
All right, and in the room.
Chair Carpenter, Lake Champlain Committee.
TJ Poor, Public Service Department.
Jenny Ronis, General Counsel for the Land Use Review Board.
Great.
Dana Lee Perry from the Crossing Group.
All righty, and Janet.
Hi, sorry not to be there with you, but I don't want to give you the virus that I picked up. So I'm here. I'm Janet Hurley, Chair of the Land Use Review Board.
Great.
And Pete Gill, Executive Director for the Land Use Review Board. Thank you so much for having us in today. And Janet, I'll let you chime in wherever you would like, but I'll get us started on the two items today. First, starting with the draft bill there on energy enhanced energy plans. So specifically, you had asked about section 2, and the wording there inserts up here. Inserts a sentence here: the submission shall happen when the draft regional plan is submitted to the Land Use Review Board for the review and adoption pursuant to section 4348 of this title. Again, this is related to the enhanced energy plan. And what it does, my understanding here is it syncs up the submission of that with the process that's ongoing with the LRB that we have talked to you guys about previously. The board would has had some conversation about this and would support that general concept of that inserted language. However, I'll just note that there is, and we can supply some wording for you if you would like. But the section there that says "and adoption," it would probably be good to remove that. The board is not doing the adoption portion of that. They are the approving body there, but just having it for the review, I think, is probably sufficient. And then it might be helpful to cite more specifically to 4348 subsection B. Little b there will be that process that I think the committee is referencing.
Okay, so strike "and adoption" because the Land Use Review Board doesn't adopt these. And then add 4348B.
Correct.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to send that to us. Yeah.
But just that the board wholeheartedly supports this. You know, the idea of the pre-application was to get as much input to the RPCs as possible before they go through their adoption process. And insofar as, you know, getting the enhanced energy plan determination of compliance in line with their determination from us, we very much support that as a board.
Great. Well, that was fast.
Excellent. So you said split the time between the hour. We will unevenly split the time. We're ready for the next section here. So H727. This is a slightly different posture for the board. As you know, we have 5 board members. They have not had a chance to have an official position on 727, but I can provide you with some insights on that. I do understand there's a suggestion in language related to this, about the citing portion and kind of the, it sounds like the committee wanted to have a discussion in terms of, citing and the role that the board potentially could play in that versus, PUC process. So let me take a few minutes here just to tell you a little bit about what we're thinking that way, or some things that you may want to consider.
Okay, Rep. Sibilia?
Just before we start, I just want to make sure that I am on the correct draft that your comments are attached to. Is that the original draft or
I am looking
the
at-
red line draft?
I'm looking at the bill as introduced, but I guess on the side, I'm also looking at the red line version. And specifically there, I was commenting on one of the comments here of TJ Poor, which we have in the room, on the citing portion.
So
Pete, can I help Rep. Sibilia? We did look at the bill as introduced as a
Right.
board, and we just didn't see where it implicated the board. And then we saw in TJ's redlining that he mentions the board in a comment. And so I think what Pete's going to explain is where we think, I mean, maybe we need to hear from you first as to what the intent is. And I think the intent from the original bill, and you should tell me, I guess, is to have the PUC do it and not implicate the LURB. Is that the intent of that bill as introduced?
I think that we expect where Act 250 would come into play. It would come into play.
Okay.
Where there's a CPG, that would also come into play.
Okay, so it would be a sort of split jurisdiction, and in that case, we
Yes.
do
Yes.
want to think about language that would make things very clear as to the different jurisdictional triggers here.
That's
So I'll let,
my perspective. That may not be the committee's, but you know, in terms of if what we've been describing is if a data center came and landed from outer space in Vermont, you know, like let's walk around, what would happen? You know, so we presume that it would likely trigger Act 250. We also know that with that much that they would also need a CPG likely. So
yeah. Okay, so yeah, so the board did discuss this, but that wasn't entirely clear to us. Now it is, and we've discussed with TJ earlier today some ways to make, you know, and I guess the other question is the intent to get all of these data centers, because there could be a smaller data center that doesn't trigger the need for an Act 250 permit.
yeah, this is specific to
The
20
megawatt.
20 megawatts. We're aware of smaller existing centers. It is not my intent
Okay.
to capture those here.
Okay. Okay, thanks. So I'll let Pete proceed.
Yeah, so one thing I'll say just with that understanding is there isn't anything in the bill as originally introduced or the red line that would trigger Act 250 specifically for these. It would be our standard jurisdictional triggers as it's drafted now. Yes.
For those of us in the room who are a little bit newer to Act 250, so what I really need to understand the jurisdiction here. So we have everybody in the room and we've got some time. So I really want to take a minute to understand when a data center would require only a CPG and in other words, nobody would be involved but the PUC. And when it would trigger a CPG and Act 250, I am not understanding the lines of authority here.
Sure.
And I know we've taken testimony on that, but it takes me a while to wrap my head around some of this stuff. So
Sure. Let me start with one point. So within Act 250, we have a definition of something that is not development. Generally, we take jurisdiction over projects that are development under our statute, and there's that's where we get our jurisdictional determinations from. Where something is not development within that, that would be outside of our jurisdiction, there is a specific provision that speaks to the PUC process. 248 is mentioned specifically in there. Those projects would not go through Act 250 because they are not development.
And what does that mean, development?
So development,
Welcome
it's
to
it's
the
a
Energy
long,
Committee, yeah.
long definition, and there are a lot of different triggers for it. But let me start with a couple that are straightforward as a starting point and most common, really. So one of those is the acreage that the project is on. So if you have you got to start with a commercial development, right? There's an exchange of money that's happening with this. You have to have construction of improvements. You got to have some sort of building or structure or something going onto the land, right? And then you look at the acreage. You say, okay, how big is this parcel? Is it 1 acre? Is it 2 acres, 3 acres? We have two different triggers there. One is if the town has no zoning, no subdivision bylaws, or doesn't have one or the other of those, then it would trigger jurisdiction on a smaller threshold. It's a 1 acre threshold there. But if the town has zoning, subdivision bylaws, then your acreage trigger is expanded. You can do larger projects without triggering through Act 250 up to 10 on a 10 acre parcel. If you're above that, then you would go into Act 250 land.
Okay, I remember this.
Yep.
So,
Mhm.
so if a town doesn't have zoning or bylaws, it's a 1 acre trigger. If a town does, it's a 10 acre trigger.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So, all right. So first it was development, 2 acreage. Okay. And then there are probably other things.
And there are other things.
The parcel, not the project.
Yes. So Jenny's just reminding me to specify for you all that it's the tract, it's the parcel size. It's not the building size or the impact size of the parking lots, etc. Everything. It is whatever that is. So you could have 3 foot by 3 foot project on a 11 acre parcel, and you would trigger under the 10 acre trigger, just to make that fit for everyone.
Okay.
So acreage, right? One
Yep.
bucket that triggers, that's development. Another one that I was thinking about in terms of data centers, and this is just, I am no data center expert by any means, but I will say that certainly heard news about the amount of water that they use for those projects, and we do have a gallonage jurisdictional trigger, so how much water a project would be using. And so that could trigger jurisdiction. Jenny may have it at the tip of her fingertips. I think it's 300 and something.
It's a lot.
Yeah, she's looking for it, but well, we can get that for you. But there is a water usage trigger that could trigger that is
40,000 gallons.
340,000.
For what?
I think it is per day. Yeah.
Okay.
So that could be another jurisdictional trigger. Doesn't matter what your acreage size is, matters your water usage size for that. Another jurisdictional trigger, and this is outside of the development bucket. That's one big trigger that we collection of triggers that we have. The other is subdivision. So if there was if they needed to subdivide that property for any reason, that could trigger Act 250 jurisdiction as well.
Okay.
And that's based on the number of lots.
All right. So we have these triggers that are now all coming back to me. And is there a determination at the outset of a project like this about whether it's CPG or Act 250, or could it, and who decides that?
Yeah, so anyone can ask for essentially if it is, let's see, let me step back for a second. If it is requested that they're going through the CPG process and they're going to get a certificate of public good, then it is outside of ours. And that's by definition of being not development under our statutory framework. So if they are intending or going through that process outside of our jurisdiction, if they intend to go that route.
Okay, so and who decides that? That they're gonna go for a CPG?
So the developer would be able to make that decision. If they wanted to do that. In terms of them asking about whether a project could or would, they can always ask for a jurisdictional opinion from our district staff.
Okay. So it wouldn't be both.
It would not be both. The review process would not be both.
So the split, I'm sorry, I'm almost done. So the split jurisdiction you were talking about, Janet, isn't that a project would require both. It's that it would require one or the other.
Well, I think what we're saying is if you want split jurisdiction, you have to change our statute somehow.
Yeah, there was, so that the comment, the red line version, did make it sound like maybe that there was a contemplation of the split jurisdiction. So that's kind of where we were looking at that. And in that case, as Janet said, we would need statutory language that would make that happen.
Sorry.
So this is exactly what I wanted to, and the red line version that we've gotten from the department has changed the requirement that was in the original for a certificate of public good to a long-term, it's called large load service equity contract, which I think has some similarities to a CPG, but is not a CPG. And so that would not be exempt, right? A large load.
Not unless it was put into the statute to be exempt for active 50.
So we'll hear more about this change here, but with the proposed red line, you would have both the process over at the department and 250. It
seems that way, yeah, that it's contemplated to have two different.
Yeah. And I think when the board looked at the red line, we didn't understand that distinction. So Jenny, I would ask you whether that's clear from the redlining that TJ provided.
I think well, obviously we didn't pick up on it. So I think we can really make it more clear that I think the concern is that as a project, the data centers would only be captured under Act 250 under the circumstances that Pete was already explaining. So a 9-acre project, a project that didn't take that much water, things like that would simply be non-jurisdictional for us and nobody would review them. So that's, if the intent is that all data centers be reviewed under Act 250, we would have to get a special trigger for that jurisdiction.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I think the size of data centers is contemplated here, which is 20. Mm-hmm. I think when you're looking at all in, you're probably over the
acreage thresholds. Yeah.
We just have different metrics. So
I don't know if you want to agree with.
Yeah. So if there was a metric that was put into Act 250 in terms of the energy usage, like there is contemplated in this bill, that would be more clear for us in terms of, yep, we are in regardless of the size of the acreage or whatever. If that was your intent.
That would not be my intent, but again, I'm one person.
Yeah, I mean, could you explore a little bit more? I'm sorry, I heard something that struck fear into my heart. Would not be reviewed by anyone.
Right.
Local zoning would still apply, any local regulation, but there wouldn't be an Act 250 statewide review. I don't know whether the electric generation component would garner review under the PUC.
So for a project that is
for a project that is less than 10 acres in a municipality that has zoning and subdivision, the municipality could review it under their zoning and subdivision rules.
So this is the same gap that Billy Coster identified.
Likely.
And I would say it's unlikely. So you're looking at a data center at the low level that we're at here. But it is a potential gap, and that is what we're trying to do, is walk around and see if our existing environmental laws and energy usage regulations apply.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the other gaps I'll note, and it depends on what direction the committee goes on this. But if it is that these projects are reviewed by the PUC, I think you've heard testimony previously in terms of the incorporation of the Act 250 criteria into that review, but it is a subset of those criteria. Under Act 250, there is, or well, I should say under the PUC statutes, there are the 9, all except for 9K, public investment, all except for 9K, those are not included in the PUC review, whereas they are included in the Act 250 review. Those include criteria such as 9B, our primary agricultural soils, forest soils. What else do we have? Settlement patterns, so the kind of where something is located, impacts of growth under 9A. There's a host of different criteria under or sub-criteria within criterion 9 of Act 250 review, again, that are not in the PUC or incorporated in the PUC process, but are in the Act 250. And just to highlight that for the committee, depending on which direction you want to go with this.
So you said there's some number of criteria that would be included in Act 250 review that are not included in the PUC process.
Correct.
Okay. I feel like we totally interrupted you. Did you have?
No, we've got there in various ways here, and we're getting a better understanding of kind of what your proposal is looking at as well. So that's very helpful. Let me just see if there was other pieces that I thought might be helpful for the committee here. One thought that I did have, and again, I'm not speaking from the board's perspective because they have not taken an official position on this bill or had an opportunity for that yet, but would be, especially if you're looking at a split process in some way, it would be helpful to have the effective date pushed out some, that we can coordinate in some, not only because we have a lot of other obligations on our plates right now, but also just to allow for that coordination with the PUC process, whether it's the creation of an MOU to describe some of the overlap that might occur and how to, where that bifurcation exists, just to make it a smooth process.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more specific. So are you asking for a delayed effective date for the bill? Are you?
Yeah, the implementation of the jurisdictional trigger, depending on it will depend on what comes out of everything, and but having that, again, just being able to have that opportunity to collaborate with PUC on what that bifurcation looks like. So if there are questions in terms of who's doing what, we can clarify that so that it's clear for the folks that are going through the process, as well as our own staff.
So could we, if we were to look at the process or the dual process that's outlined in the red line,
Yeah.
Which presumes 250 if there's jurisdiction or it's triggered,
Yeah.
and a contract is necessary for large loads. So could we?
That would be PUC.
Yeah. So could we say that these large load contracts would not be issued until date certain, and would that have the effect potentially?
Yeah, yeah,
And
that
you have
could
a
be,
sense
yeah, I mean,
date certain?
I would say it would be helpful even to just have applications don't come in until date, whatever,
Do you have a
something like
sense
that.
of date certain?
I don't, but I would say a couple of months, just, maybe somewhere in the range of like 3 to 6 months, something like that would be helpful. Again, I'm not speaking from a position of the board, but I think that would be helpful from a process perspective, to be able to make sure.
Can I ask a follow-up question, Representative Sibilia, on what you suggested?
Yeah.
You suggested holding up the contract until the Act 250 permit was issued. Is that what you suggested, or vice versa?
No, what I am suggesting is, in order to honor the request that I'm hearing from the learner for more time, to put in here language about not issuing these large load contracts until date certain.
Okay. Not okay. Yeah, and Pete, I think we need to discuss this as a board, to have a sort of a coalesced board position on this, but I hear what you're saying. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know if the board would agree with Pete that we need the time. So, and I don't know if I don't know if you have any input on that question, Jenny.
If we were going based on our existing jurisdictional triggers, I don't think that having a contract or not would prevent someone from applying for an Act 250 permit.
Yeah, I mean, what this says, well, let me take it back. What the red line says, which contemplates this, is you would, if you're triggered, you're getting an Act 250 and you have to get this large load contract. So, I mean, one is just your normal kind of big large load user for Act 250, big development project. And the other is this new large load contract instead of a CPG.
Yeah. Yeah. And with that bifurcation, it may be clearer than I'm thinking. I guess part of it is that it feels like a little bit of a moving target. I'm trying to figure out where the committee wants to land on that. So it may not be necessary to have time. And I think, like Janet said, it would be good for the board to have an understanding of where you all want to go. And then we can talk a little bit more about, we need a little more time, or this will be doable.
So I would just add that I am not looking to add load into Act 250 as a jurisdictional trigger at all, ever.
And I would add that I am extremely committed to no gaps. So the thought that we would be setting up a process here where, a 9.5 acre data center could come in and be subject only to local approval, that's a no-go for me.
And a large load contract.
Yeah. There's a water trigger.
Yeah.
There could be a water trigger.
It's possible.
Do you know how much these data centers use in gallons per day? Is that something you know, TJ?
Last week.
I don't know. I don't know the water use.
300,000.
It's even more. I guess it depends on the hour.
Up to 5 million, yeah.
Up to 5
I
million
think
gallons.
300,000 gallons a day was average, but larger ones could go up to 5 million gallons a day.
20 megawatts.
So, since we have you here and we have a little bit of time, do you guys have a sec? One thing I wanted to understand a little bit better is that we, on a different bill that I don't remember the number. I'm sorry. On our cell tower bill, you guys came in to talk to us, and I came away with a a pretty clear feeling that the PUC's 248A process was really hard for citizens and municipalities to engage. And I don't want to set up a similar problem here with projects that are way bigger and have a much more significant impact. And so I'm worried about that, about how a community would really engage with a CPG or a large load contract process that might be going on in its backyard for a big data center. And we started to talk a little bit last time when you were here about how or whether the Act 250 process might be more citizen friendly. And so could you guys just talk a little bit about how it works? If there's a big project and it's triggered Act 250, what happens? How do people engage?
Yeah.
How do they find out? How do they testify? How do they impact the process?
Sure. So as you'll recall, there's kind of two processes within Act 250. The first is the minor process. So same application form that is submitted, still up on the on our public database, so all can see whether it's a major or a minor. All those materials go up onto our public facing page. And then the commission will review that and determine those applications that come in. They'll determine, is this going to go through the minor process or the major process? Major process being that a hearing is held. That's the main distinction between those two processes. Let me start again with the minor process. So if it's going that route, it will get posted on our website. It will get a notice of that will get published in the newspaper, and there'll be a 30-day comment period. Can be 20 days, but at any rate, there'll be a comment period for folks to comment. During that period, they can say this needs to change, that needs to change, or they can say we think this needs a hearing and needs to get scooted over to the major process. Yes.
Can anybody comment, or do you need standing?
Nope. Anybody can comment. Whether they have standing later on in any court proceeding would be another matter, but they can supply comments through the process.
Okay, so notice is published in the newspaper.
14-day, I believe.
Or adjoining or abutting property owners notified, even if it's minor?
Yes.
Because I always wonder how the word gets out, right? So,
Yep.
So property owners are notified. So we can assume that the word's going to get out and anybody can comment. They don't have to have standing. This is not yet any kind of a quasi judicial or quasi legal setting. It's just
Correct. Yeah. And then for those that go through the major process, we're hearing you have all that notice, that same similar notice processes, but you will hold a hearing and there'll be notice about that hearing occurring as well. And folks can come in and participate in that process. We pride ourselves in having district commissioners that are part of the community, part of that district, that are appointed from the governor, by the governor's office. And they are welcoming to the public in terms of that process. We have parties that can come in and state their claims of why their aggrievements are could be addressed by the Act 250 criteria, those 10 criteria that we've gone over previously. And if they can do that, then they're going to be granted preliminary party status. So a starting point. If they learn more and find out that party status doesn't fit that individual, they can make that determination in their final issuance. But at the get-go, preliminary party status is granted. So that's one avenue for the public to participate. Another is what we have is called Friends of the Commission. And these are individuals that are not seeking party status formally in that way. They won't have appeal rights under that approach, but they can offer information and comment to the commission. Commission can weigh that as it does with all of the evidence. And then the commission will review everything that that's been submitted on the record, as well as part of the hearing process, and issue a decision that is then posted on our website. And there's appeal rights for those that participated and have party status at the end of the day.
Pete, can I just clarify one thing? So initially, if something is proposed as a minor and there's a comment period, parties can request a hearing, and that forces it into the major category.
That's right.
And do you have to be a party with status to make that request?
Okay.
You do need to have a party status petition attached with your request for a hearing.
Okay. But if you don't get that party status, then can the commission not hold a hearing?
I suppose the commission could, based on evidence before it, still request a hearing. The commission, even without a request for a hearing, could decide that a hearing is warranted in a case that is before them. They can make that determination.
Rep. Sibilia?
I just want to go back to the split jurisdiction, if that's all right.
Yeah.
And just, as someone who represents a couple of towns where there are ski areas, I think we have, so ski areas in particular have that type of split jurisdiction. A lot of them. I mean, they have Act 250 permits, and then with a lot of them have renewable or other CPG, I believe.
Or tariffs, like
Special tariffs
right,
because of
special
the
tariffs.
amount of use.
Right. Snowmaking tariffs.
And that was just reflecting that was something that Chair McNamara had brought to my attention. He initially reviewed this, like we have seen large load entities before in Vermont. He's contemplating the amount of work. Original draft.
So something like the ski area, they have all their Act 50 permits or permanent, and then they have to go through PUC for their water use. Is that what we're talking about? Sorry.
Well, so if I may,
Yeah.
I think the distinction is, I think maybe it'd be useful to imagine a ski area expanding, right? And a new side of the mountain, right?
Yeah.
If it's over 10 acres, it's definitely in Act 250 or, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it would be at Act 250, but then they want to do snowmaking on there. And so the load associated with it, the electric usage would be part of the tariff that is approved by the Public Utility Commission. And so that's kind of where that split jurisdiction, I think, would come in. And I don't know if it's split really, it's just
dual.
It's
like
different
areas.
right? Exactly. And so the PUC in that instance wouldn't have jurisdiction over water use, I don't think. It would.
And then they need A&R permits as well.
Right. And they would, but they just have it over, okay, this additional load is going to cause the need to upgrade the substation. And so that then goes into, the tariff that the company has for snowmaking would then be reviewed to see if it continues to meet the requirements of cost causer pays.
So I think the analogy that's helpful is if you have, or the thing to think about is it's more a matter. I think when you think of split, it'd be same project, two different entities reviewing versus same development, but different areas of project. You know, one would maybe be a solar installation on a ski mountain, separate projects, separate processes for
That's-
regulatory review.
For me, really helpful. I definitely got lost in the split jurisdiction phrase. So,
I have a question.
okay.
Is the trigger for section 248 review the volume of electricity being used, or is it the ski area's request for a special tariff because of the
It's the latter. It's the special tariff. The tariff is
so the ski area, because they're using so much electricity, they're requesting a special tariff.
right.
And
Or
basically a discount.
Well, the tariff is because they're kind of like their own customer class, right? They're not like a residential customer
Yeah.
or a traditional commercial customer, and they have very specific uses. And so that it's to balance and appropriately allocate costs to the the end user. And so the 248 actually isn't implicated unless there's generation.
Okay.
And even that generation, this is subject to check, but I'm pretty sure that it has to export to the grid. So if it was just a generation, like backup generation that was never ever going to export to the grid, then the Public Utility Commission would not, it doesn't need a 248 approval. It still would need air permits and other things from A&R, but not
Air permits.
air permits. Yeah, like emissions permits. It was like diesel
okay.
generator or
Right.
water permits,
Right.
and those types of things. But
Again, the tariff is at the request of the ski area.
or the utility. I mean, it's actually the utility that would petition the PUC for a tariff and approval, so that presumably with support of the end user, they would come in together.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to clarify that. Yep.
I think TJ answered it, but I was gonna bring up, we talked about bring your own generation. Does that kick in anything with Act 250 or no?
No, we don't have any triggers based on the amount that's being generated or used. There are review criteria that will review, actually under the nines. One of the other ones I didn't mention was 9F, and that's your energy conservation. So we would review that, but it's not a jurisdictional trigger. One other thing I was going to mention in terms of, Chair, your question in terms of engagement was the agencies, including PUC, would be able to obtain party status with any Act 250 within any Act 250 proceeding. Provide comment and participate in that process.
On request.
Yes, yeah. So oftentimes, Agency of Agricultural, Food and Markets comes in on prime agricultural soils. The Agency of Natural Resources will come in on a variety of natural resource issues.
Yeah. But all they have to do is raise their hand and say, we'd like party status.
They're in automatic. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Do we have more questions for the LURB?
Chair James, are you interested in getting any language from us?
Yeah. Can
And
you?
So we have a meeting on Thursday as a board, and it sounds like you're probably moving forward with TJ's redlined version. Is that an accurate portrayal of where it looks like you may be going?
I don't know. TJ's going to come up and present his red line version right now.
Okay.
We're happy to stick around.
If
for a
you
little
can
bit
stick
during-
around.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about the different suggestions and the implications of all the different suggestions. So I think that's next. Yeah.
So I would note that there has been identified by both A&R and the LURB potential gap in a 10-acre town for a 9.5 acre. site, which I think is unlikely, but that is a gap that has been identified.
Yeah, so we'll listen in and I guess
Mhm.
try to get you language after Thursday that may address any sort of issues that the LURB sees from our perspective on this
Okay.
question of
Um,
regulating these
one
data.
sort one sort of caution I do want to toss out there though is that I'm always aware of how good bills could fall into a very deep hole. And I'm a little, somebody had mentioned changing an Act 250 criteria or adding a criteria to Act 250. A little concerned about, that's not just a blithe little.
No, that requires rulemaking and,
So,
a year and a half
that could
of
be something that we all
study.
never emerge from,
Yeah.
ever. Us and our bill. We'll just crawl off and no one will ever know what happened to us. So I don't know. I mean, it's just a thought. If there are other ways, I feel super concerned about a gap. And also, concerned that we not start rewriting Act 250. That's not even our, as you could tell from some of my earlier questions, that is not our committee jurisdiction or area of expertise.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we're talking about two things here, Madam Chair. I could be wrong.
Possibly, I don't know.
One is this gap that has been identified in the existing Act 250 language. And the other is the potential to move large loads into Act 250. Those are two different things. That moving large loads into Act 250 is one way you could deal with that gap, but that would be hugely problematic for me and others. I would much rather deal with that or have the two. So I don't know if there are other ways of dealing with a potential gap. Did I articulate that?
Yeah, I think the other way to deal with a gap would be a specific jurisdictional trigger for Act 250 in those particular circumstances where a large load is needed and Act 250 otherwise wouldn't be triggered based on the acreage or other jurisdictional trigger. But
What's adding a large load trigger, right?
Yeah, I guess it would be. Yeah.
I mean,
But if you were intending on having those projects go through Act 250 and you were concerned that there was a gap, that's how you would.
Yeah.
That would be a mechanism to do that. It wouldn't be a standalone trigger to bring in all, other projects. It would be just for that specific purpose. But again, the board's not advocating for anything there, just giving you all the information in terms of how that could work if that is a direction you wanted to pursue.
So I have a thought about maybe kind of gut checking this. So GMP in their testimony provided a list of sites that they thought would make sense. And so maybe we should just look, that might be helpful to think about those specific places. Yes.
that's an interesting concept that we actually talked with TJ about this morning, the four of us. The idea that maybe they have to be in one of the enterprise areas that are mapped on the future land use maps.
I'm not sure what that means.
Okay.
It sounds, I am not sure what that means, but it is not what I had said, which was there are only certain areas that GMP had identified in their territory as suitable. We haven't had all of the utilities, but I mean, these are not, kind of drop-in places. So I'm wondering
Yeah.
about looking at, well, is this a 10-acre town? What is maybe getting
Yeah.
a sense of the parcel size, if there are, to see if there is, I'm going to stop talking and continue to process that internally.
Okay. And we can talk further too. But yeah.
So timing wise, we had talked in committee earlier about, so crossover is the 13th, Friday the 13th.
Oh, perfect.
I know. So we had hoped to get, all kind of outstanding testimony, thoughts, comments, ideas in hand before this coming weekend. And then that gives us town meeting break to try to work on a draft.
Yeah, tentatively, I was trying to schedule with Maria Friday for us to compile what we know,
Okay.
as you just noted.
Yeah. So I guess that's a day earlier than I had maybe just said. If we were going to try to walk through all the testimony we've heard and the ideas we've heard and have a committee discussion about the bill on Friday, then we would need to hear from you, like Friday morning. Ugh.
Yeah. So we do have a meeting, sort of an emergency meeting to deal with these legislative matters that
Legislature.
I know.
yeah. So so we could get back to you by Friday morning.
That would be great.
You're not talking about this Friday.
I am.
Oh, you are
Yes.
about this Friday.
Yeah, no, we tried
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and the wall just got closer.
What other Friday is there?
it. Unfortunately, yeah. Okay. Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate your thoughtful comments. And why don't we go ahead?
Yeah, thank you again for having us.
Yeah.
We'll stick around.
You.
Thanks. Great.
You.
Hey, do you want me to sit in the chair for the first part? And Claire McElveny is going to do most of the testimony on Act 174.
Sure.
Or I could just let you focus on the screen. And Claire, how would you like to proceed?
I don't care. Whatever you want to do. Whatever.
Okay.
What's easiest for you?
I'll take the chair so Peter can sit down.
Okay, great.
Yeah. It wasn't my chair. Get this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, great.
Which committee gave you a black eye?
Yeah. Makes me think it wasn't somebody from this committee. It's a pretty rough building.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Are we talking about the committee bill first?
That's how it's scheduled. That'd be great. And then we could let Claire
Let Claire
go
go.
afterwards. Yeah.
Okay, great.
So, we never took a break, so we can just go, I guess.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
live.
And just for the record, again, TJ Poor, Public Service Department, and I'm really just going to turn it over to Claire McElveny, from the Planning Division at the Public Service Department.
Great. And can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, for the record, Claire McElveny, I'm our Data and Equity Policy Manager at the Department of Public Service on TJ's team. And I've been, among other things, helping lead the implementation of Act 174 for about the last 5 years with my colleague Ann Margolis, who you would have heard from on Friday, but who is on break with her daughter today. So I know Anne had provided some draft language that I'm planning to walk through in a minute. I believe it hopefully was printed out. I would have brought copies if I was there in person. I did not want to share my germs. But I thought I would start with just a little bit of context and overview on Act 174 and why we're asking for these, what we see as largely technical corrections and support aligning with the Act 181 Land Use Review Board process. And then I'm happy to pull up the document and walk through them with the committee. But largely, the proposed changes that the document talks through are largely covering two threads. One, kind of, like I mentioned, technical corrections that have emerged over the 10 years or so we've been working on Act 174, enhanced energy planning, and then the more recent implementation of the Land Use Review Board process under Act 181. So just a brief refresher, if folks aren't familiar with Act 174 Enhanced Energy Planning, this was enacted in 2016. So like you said, it's been around for just about 10 years now. And among other things, created voluntary planning paradigms for regions and also municipalities around energy planning. So under this paradigm, the department creates recommendations and issues standards that are consistent with state energy policies and goals, like the Renewable Energy Standard and the Global Warming Solutions Act now, that help regional and municipal energy plans align with state energy policy. So the inaugural standards were issued back in 2016, and now we update them every 6 years alongside the Comprehensive Energy Plan. So the last update was in 2022, and we'll be updating them in 2028 with the forthcoming CEP. The planning paradigm at a high level asks towns and regions to evaluate their current energy use and plan for future energy use across the all energy sectors, so really electric, thermal, and transportation, while also asking them to identify potential areas for development of renewable energy generation, along with areas that they would find unsuitable for such resources, including specifics around size and generation types. And then if a department reviews a plan for the regions, or regional planning commissions review municipal plans and determine that the plan aligns with the standards, they receive what is called substantial deference in a Section 248 proceeding. So effectively, plans with substantial deference are given greater weight by the Public Utility Commission when they're reviewing siting permits than they otherwise would. They would just receive due consideration. So that's kind of a high level, what is Act 174? And then just in terms of the process, which we'll talk a little bit about in the language. Right now, the way the process works is we encourage, although it's not required, that regions submit draft enhanced energy plans to the department before they're formally adopted, so we can have a level of informal review and dialogue before plans are final. We found this to be a really collaborative and beneficial process just to identify any issues, again, before a region adopts their plan. And then in terms of the required process, once a regional planning commission has duly adopted the regional plan and the enhanced energy plan that typically accompanies it, they would submit it to the department, and we would have 2 months to review that plan for conformance with the standards we issue. And that process includes a public hearing in that region on the extent to which the plan conforms with the standards. And then we also solicit feedback from several of our sister agencies, like the Agency of Natural Resources and Commerce and Community Development, among a couple others. And then I mentioned we're at the department largely reviewing or wholly reviewing regional plans, and then the regional planning commissions have a similar process where they review the municipal plans, looking for an affirmative determination under enhanced energy planning. Yeah, and I think the last, outside of formal reviews, the department provides guidance and tools to help support this process, along with a lot of technical assistance. We are grateful for support from Vermont Center for Geographic Information. While there was initially a small amount of funding to support this work, this is something we largely support, also the regions, without additional resources. Then before I get into kind of the technical pieces, I think it's worth saying 10 years in, talking about how it's been working. We're not aware of any citing petitions that have been denied because of a plan's substantial deference. But we think that this means that Act 174 and enhanced energy planning kind of working more proactively to help steer proposals to areas where towns and regions may be more favorable to development of renewables. So because regional and municipal plans now have identified those who have gone through the enhanced energy planning process, identified areas in their region or municipality where they would like to encourage development, and also areas where they would like to discourage it. It allows for those proactive conversations, and also signals where a petition may face opposition, and that opposition would just be even stronger if that plan had substantial deference. So on the whole, we think that's been a positive process. And then, like I'll talk about in a minute, there have just been some procedural elements that as we've worked through this planning process, we think could be improved through some technical corrections. For example, determinations, when a department issues an affirmative determination saying a regional plan has met our standards, that determination lasts for the lifetime of the regional plan, but it expires once that plan is no longer in effect. So for example, if a region updates their plan, but doesn't make any changes to the energy element, and then adopts that new plan, that would effectively expire the current determination and require the department to review the plan again, even though it's unchanged and we've effectively already determined that it aligns with our standards. And also, just as we've gone through this process, identified some areas where we could be a little more efficient with our resources, especially as I'll talk about in a moment. We're entering a time where the Land Use Review Board process is, in particular this year, encouraging all the regions to update their plans in a very short amount of time, sometimes with changes to their energy elements and sometimes with not. And so that is just causing us to reflect on the resources that it takes to review all of those plans in this year in very short order. So yeah, I think that's a lot of the background context I was going to provide before walking into the plan, the language itself, but happy to pause if there are questions.
I did have one question. So our draft committee bill, which was draft 1.1, it's dated to February 12th.
Yep.
I'm sure you guys have seen that. That includes one paragraph on the energy planning with one suggested change about syncing up the timing of the draft regional plan and when that's submitted to the LURB. And that's what we were contemplating. But you guys are suggesting a more wholesale rewrite of
I wouldn't.
a lot more here than.
Yeah. I'm happy. I think TJ may have spoken at a high level prior to this, but I think we're not considering the language before you that's not currently in the committee bill, but that I believe Anne provided on Friday for review, a wholesale rewrite. These are really things we've limited, or we think are technical corrections that had been kind of surfacing prior to the implementation of the new Land Use Review Board process, and some of which have been exacerbated as we see how the implementation of that process influences the Act 174 planning process. So yeah, I'm happy to get into the specifics of the language that we've provided that's a little more comprehensive than what is in the current committee bill, but we really do see these as a broader set of language changes that would help further that alignment with the LURB process. Some of which I think the piece in your committee bill talks about that. And then there's other components in the language we provided that expands upon that. And then other corrections that will help us as we navigate these two processes in the short term. I think in terms of large scale Act 174 planning, these wouldn't really change the substance of the planning. It's really just focused on a few procedural elements.
That answer your question?
It did.
Okay. So if there's no questions on context, hopefully I'll be able to share my screen. Oop. I just sent a request for permission to share.
Okay.
We can see your screen, Claire.
Okay, great. Thank you. Just reorganizing. Yeah, so here, the attached document and what I think you have before you are excerpts from the relevant statutes where a few these technical corrections would live. Happy to I'm just going to walk through top to bottom and feel free to stop me as questions come up. The first correction that adjustment we've proposed is that currently, as I mentioned, we issue updated standards with the comprehensive energy plan. This would just be asking for up to a year following that plan's issuance to do that. It would give us a little bit of extra time if, for example, we had capacity constraints or there were last minute changes to the comprehensive energy plan in the public review process that warranted changes to the standards. So I think that's relatively straightforward, but happy to address questions there. The second piece of this is aligned, I think, with the language that you already have in your committee bill. There's actually two pieces here, one on this page 1, and I think page 3 has a related change where we're looking to align when we review draft enhanced energy plans with when the Land Use Review Board reviews draft regional plans, and then also align when regions submit for a formal determination of compliance on their enhanced energy plan. Again, when they submit their regional plan for review to the Land Use Review Board. And again, just looking from a process perspective to align those two reviews, the department participates in both processes, obviously leading the Act 174 review and then participating in review under the Land Use Review Board process as well. So I think formally aligning those. This is in practice what we've encouraged regions to do already, and this would just formalize that. The next change is on.
Sorry,
oh, yep, go ahead.
I hate to always put people on the spot, but I guess since we have the Land Use Review Board here, if you have any thoughts or questions as we go along,
Yeah, I think the board
we welcome those now because.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I can't see that language very well, but we'll certainly take a look at it, like we said, on our Thursday meeting.
Okay.
Generally, in terms of the alignment, we are aligned with that approach.
Okay.
Yeah, and I meant to say at the outset, when we developed the language that we're talking through, we have consulted with both the regional planning commissions and the Land Use Review Board. I think you'll be hearing from some of the regional planning commissions maybe tomorrow, but they are also generally supportive of the changes that are proposed here. I think they'll speak to the specifics, but have consulted with others as we put this forward.
Okay.
Think you can carry on, Claire?
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you heard me. Yep.
No, sorry.
Thanks, Claire.
Yeah, one of the other places for process efficiency that we're proposing is to, and this change speaks to that, have the Regional Planning Commission solicit feedback on their enhanced energy plan at one of the public hearings they hold prior to adopting their plan, as opposed to the department holding a separate hearing during the formal review process, which I mentioned is our current practice. So this language would make that switch. There's language further on in this document that would remove the public hearing the department has to hold. And that's for a couple of different reasons. One, well, we've heard there's fatigue in terms of engagement in these types of processes, so we're looking to streamline where possible. Also, our public hearing happens after the plan has been finalized, so the input we receive really just influences whether the department issues an affirmative or negative determination on the plan. There's no opportunity for the Regional Planning Commission to address the feedback and modify their plan. So we think that having the region solicit input at one of their public hearings would just be a more meaningful way for that input to be received and acted upon as relevant. And then later in this document, there's language that would require the department to then consider that feedback during our review process, and also how the Regional Planning Commission incorporated it.
Okay, what,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, questions, anybody?
But that language you were just talking about is on which page? You're still on page 1 here.
Oh.
Oh, now
interesting.
it just switched to page 2.
Oh,
so
sorry. There must be a delay. I apologize.
Okay.
Yeah, so I should be on page 3.
Okay.
The Regional Planning Commission shall, if it is seeking an optional determination of compliance, solicit feedback on its enhanced energy plan. So.
Okay. Yeah, we're seeing that now.
Okay, great.
Great. Yeah.
Any
Okay.
questions on that?
I think you can move on.
Great. Maybe skipping, just the next page. Okay, so I'm on page 4, just in case my screen hasn't updated. This follows on one of the changes I've already mentioned around aligning with the Land Use Review Board timing. So the first language we looked at aligning timing of draft reviews. And then this language here basically says that when a region submits their regional plan to the Land Use Review Board, they should also submit it to the department for a determination of energy compliance.
Okay.
All right. And then I'm gonna go, we have a couple pages onward to page 6 now. Sorry, these changes aren't really kind of one process change at a time, but there's language here around municipal hearings, and this is really just to align that if we're asking a Regional Planning Commission to solicit input on their energy plan at their public hearings, municipalities should also be soliciting input on their energy plans at their public hearings. I think our understanding is that this in practice already happens anyways.
Well, it's already being done.
Pardon? Is that a question?
I think the question that's already being done, Claire.
Yes, that's our understanding. And that's something you could confirm with the regional planning commissions that you hear from.
Okay.
Great. Just a couple more. These changes on this page, I'm on page 7, really, I think do fall under just technical corrections. They effectively update language around greenhouse gas requirements. They were goals when this was passed. And then removing goals that are no longer in effect that have expired. And then the last change under state energy plans aligns with the change on the first page that would give the department up to an additional year after we publish the comprehensive energy plan to update the standards. And then similarly on page 8, this first track change section aligns with what we talked about with the public hearing. So this would require the department to consider that feedback collected in our determination process instead of holding our own public hearing, which we have 60 days, well, 2 months. We're proposing here that we be more specific and say 60 days. The public hearing is one of the more timely and costly components of the review process. And then the changes following that in around the appeals, just update the name of the Land Use Review Board, no longer the Natural Resources Board, and remove the last change on this page, removes a provision of Act 174 that is no longer effective. There was a short window where the department could review a municipal enhanced energy plan before regional commissions had the opportunity to develop enhanced energy plans. And now that they've had that opportunity, they review those plans instead. So we're just proposing to take that language out since it is no longer in effect.
Okay.
And then the last change on page 9, we have 2 proposed edits, which deal with a challenge of Act 174 that we've been experiencing for a little while, but has come up more and more that, like I mentioned, when the department issues an affirmative determination on an enhanced energy plan that provides substantial deference, it is attached to the life of that regional plan. So this typically doesn't cause issues, except for a couple of situations we run into. One being that a region has to update and adopt a new plan for a non-energy reason, such as coming up to speed with new requirements under the Land Use Review Board and Act 181 process. The department would still be required to re-review that enhanced energy plan because the region has adopted a new plan, so their prior determination is no longer valid. So that is the first bullet there. It would just allow us to effectively provide a provisional, a provisional determination. Oh, sorry, that's the second bullet. I am confusing my language, apologies. So that's the second, number 2 here. The first bullet there deals with another issue around the determination being attached to the regional plan itself, which is that once the plan expires, the determination expires, and the department then needs to review the new plan in order to provide a new affirmative determination, which creates this exposure period for regions where they don't have substantial deference. That could be as little as 60 days, if not longer. So here we're looking to say if a region's notified us that they have developed a new enhanced energy plan, they could seek a provisional determination from the department that would cover them while we review that new plan. Which if we make the changes where we're reviewing draft plans, we would have already had an opportunity to review the plan and have a sense whether or not it conforms with the new standards. So they're trying to both address that exposure period where a region may not have the ability to have substantial deference should something be proposed in their region during that window. And then also dealing with the case of if a region updates their plan, not for an energy related reason, it would give the department the opportunity to kind of extend their current determination with some boundaries of if we've issued new standards, they would still need to update the new plan. So
this one in particular, I think it's this one, there's a risk of a gap for plans to have a determination from the department, in which case like a developer could come and say, well, there's no regional or municipal plan that has a determination from the department that you and ultimately receives substantial deference in a PUC proceeding. And so one of the things that the bulk of these changes does is kind of avoid having that gap where like a regional plan was updated, not for energy reasons, but the department's determination of compliance kind of just from a timing thing is no longer valid. And so now that PUC can't look to something and say you have substantial deference in a citing case. And so that's one of the things that these changes address.
Okay.
Yeah, and just on the second part, I'll just add, I think when Act 174 was created, we envisioned that regional plans would likely be updated maybe once every 8 years. That's their kind of cycle, maybe slightly more frequently here and there. And that has just turned out not to be true for a variety of reasons, whether related to energy planning or not. And I think that's something we had identified before the land use review board process was started implementation this year. And just as like kind of a sense, because many of these regional plans, I think maybe 5 or 6 of them have recently come in for a new determination of energy compliance. But because all the regions will be updating their plans to conform with the new requirements under Act 181, all of the regional planning commissions will have to be adopting a new plan, which means that the department will be likely reviewing all of their enhanced energy plans again, both those who don't currently have an affirmative determination of compliance and those who we've recently reviewed, even as recently as last year, and haven't made changes to their plans. So also looking for some process efficiency there with some of these changes. And yeah, I think that's the last of it. And the annotations here try and explain what I've walked through, but happy to answer any questions as you consider.
Great. Claire, thanks so much for your time and your work. Does anybody have any questions at the moment? Okay. Claire, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
Good
really
afternoon.
appreciate you being here when your colleague could not. So
Yeah, great.
all righty.
Well,
Thanks.
I'll leave you with TJ.
All right, sounds good.
She said that so apologetically.
I didn't mean it that way.
All right. Okay. All right, switching gears.
Right. Back to data centers.
Yes.
Okay. You all ready or go into it?
I would actually like, does anybody have a printout of the red line? And or Alex, could you print that out for me? Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Everybody. Yeah, why don't we take a 5-minute break?
Okay.
We can go up live. Sorry, TJ.